Hello, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live series on the 2020 second half SAP SuccessFactors release. I'm your host, Craig Powers, Managing Editor at Rizing, and this is the third of many H2 2020 release discussions over the course of the coming weeks. And I'm very excited to say that today we will be educating you on the latest updates in SuccessFactors learning. A housekeeping note, as a reminder, with so many people working from home right now, bandwidth might be stretched. If there are issues with the stream, hold tight and we'll get it back online or fixed as soon as possible. So grab a drink and I'll let you decide which one, depending on what time zone you are in. And I'll get going with introducing our panelists. So first, today we are lucky to have a returning guest this week in Carey Ross, our senior consultant in AMS. Carey, how are you doing today?
Hi, Craig. Doing great today.
And looks like we have the dog just highlighted once again. Great to have her back.
Lucy's here to see what's going on.
Excellent.
I think she's about ready to quit for the day, though. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So along with Carey, who's returning after being here on Monday, we have Chris Fellabaum, another senior consultant for AMS. Chris, I know you're returning after doing some H1 LinkedIn Lives with us. So are you excited to be back?
I am, Craig. I'm excited to be back in the ring. So
excellent. And I know we've seen Carey's dog, so I'll keep a lookout for your cats as well. So
please do.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to now just let you guys get going with all the great stuff in the new learning release.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. And Carey, a pleasure as always, my old friend.
Absolutely. Always fun to get together and have a little chat about our favorite topic.
That's right. So, welcome to the H2 2020 LMS release overview and discussion and chat, or as I call it, the closer to not 2020 release, right? So that's always a plus.
That is a plus at this time of year, right? Or
yes,
for
it
this
is.
year.
The jokes write themselves. So the SuccessFactors learning release this go around it's kind of a mixed bag. It's a little bit odd. It looks big on the surface. You know, there are a lot of entries and a lot of features, but there are kind of a lot of very situational little things going on there that don't affect the majority of customers, let's say.
So nothing major like the big, huge change last time that we talked about with the new interface. Just
there is
pieces to help that, right?
Correct. And of course, the old interface will be retiring with this release. A lot of the features, though, that you see in the release are kind of technically more like patches, I guess, to kind of bring the new admin UI fully ready for prime time before the old UI is completely sunsetted on Friday. So, you know, especially for those of us who have worked with that old UI for almost 10 years, let's, observe a moment of silence on Friday for it going away.
Definitely. It's going to be, had to kind of force myself to make sure I was using it, since two different links were taking us to different places, in certain areas. So
that'll be a lot clearer and easier to navigate, maybe, no pun intended, on come Monday, because you won't really have a choice. So
right. I think that it is pretty easy if you just get yourself into it.
It is. To be fair, it really makes sense once you play around with it for 15, 20 minutes. I think SuccessFactors did a fantastic job on it. Clearly they spent a lot of time. They listened to a lot of feedback. So to me, that's all good news. So, some of the fixes or some examples of those fixes that you might see would include if in preview over the last month or so, you've tried to paste a comma-separated list of values into an assignment profile rule. That wasn't working too well, so that'll be fixed.
I've had a lot of customers bring that up.
Yeah, that is something you get used to. A little more alarmingly, I guess, the add new item dialog was not observing entity configuration quite right. So fields that were hidden or should have been hidden were showing, and vice versa. And required fields were not being validated. So that's a very good fix.
Definitely.
And also, the rest, I'm not going to get into detail on them, but they kind of normalize some of the features, ability to filter and sort, especially within entity records, kind of normalize things with the old UI. So.
Definitely, a lot of the stuff just starts to make more sense with some
indeed.
of those that we're missing. And I think that the way you describe that as kind of like patches or fixes, to just kind of enhance that a little bit more for us, since we're going to have, since we're really only going to be using that.
True enough. One very nice enhancement is, that's actually a new feature, is the addition of a related programs tab within item records. I can't tell you how many customers I've spoken with who have tried to inactivate items that are in a number of programs and just really grapple with that, because it'll tell you, no, you can't do that, but it doesn't really tell you which programs they're in. So that gives you a nice list.
That's definitely been something that's been lacking, and just to keep it in line with everything else that you can look at with an item, to be able to see that there, like you can with curriculum or tasks or the assignment profiles, any of those things, just makes sense that that's there.
Indeed. And that view, the related programs tab, actually also has number of incomplete program assignees. So sort of a dynamic generated figure that you can see right there, a snapshot of what's going on and what activity that item has within programs.
Nice. That's a nice little feature.
I think the real news with this release, at least for me, is the evolving situation with native LMS users. So, native LMS users, of course, this isn't a scenario that will affect every customer by any means, but some customers, of course, have users who don't originate from platform and are created directly in LMS, or create their own accounts through account request, and who log directly or natively into the LMS. And as you know, that's been a serious evolving situation for a while. And SAP has actually kind of even reversed course on where they're going with that.
Definitely. That's been a big topic this year with the native login. And lots of people very worried about it, with that initial shock of, what do you mean that's going to happen? How are we going to do this? How are we going to plan for it? Well, so I think it's good, the kind of the backtrack that happened to kind of come up with some new thoughts and ideas of how it can work.
Correct. And the external user and platform feature that SAP was pushing for a long time as a replacement solution for native login has its merits, right? It gives external users ability to access JAM, to access the mobile app. So there are benefits to it, but it wasn't for everyone by any means. And it kind of overcomplicated the situation for some customers. So they're changing direction back to allowing native LMS-only users is significant. But let's try to let's break that down a little and try to demystify it, what this release means for native login users. So quickly, kind of as a summary, first of all, native login for admins will be going away completely with the H1 2021 release.
What are we going to do?
I know. It's probably most, kind of the biggest letdown to consultants like us who depend on that quick, easy way to get into customer instances, but it will be going away. There is a workaround. If you have a linked user account, the user native login page will still be available. However, with a catch. the next big change, of course, and you're a little more up on this than I am by virtue of your work with reporting and analytics. If you want to keep using the native login capability, whether that be the old plateau native login page for users or site login pages, customers will need to implement IaaS, and that stands for what?
IaaS.
Identity. Well, you'd probably better take that one.
Sure. Identity Authentication Service. That's going to be kind of the workaround and a much better option than using the external learner from the platform side.
Oh, yeah.
The IaaS that is a prerequisite for a few things now. With learning, if you were able to catch the reporting discussion on Monday, a big thing for the new people analytics, and also some stuff with Career Site Builder. And I could just imagine it's going to be many, many more uses there in the future.
Right.
But IaaS, you do need to implement that if you have that requirement for the external learners, that you do not want to put them into platform. It's just another way that they can be authenticated into. You'd put the users in there that they can be authenticated to move over into learning. Still somewhat going in kind of that native way, but it just authenticates them in a different way, and it's not truly that external or native login, same exact link as it used to be. Now we've got a lot to learn about what that is, specifically around learning, right?
And the user experience won't really change. In fact, I've heard that it may actually be the same link for sites, especially. So I think they're doing all they can to minimize impact to existing. If you have an extended enterprise thing going on with customers that you train or a use case like that. It really, I think IaaS just becomes the authentication protocol on the back end. But there is a deadline for all of this, and that will be, and I'm reading here, the quote is, on or after the second half 2021 release will be kind of the drop dead date for having to have IaaS in place as an LMS authentication solution, as well as a requirement to migrate your existing native users to IaaS. And we don't really have detail on that yet, what that migration path will look like, whether it'll take a implementation partner like us to help with, maybe it hides behind provisioning, or whether it'll just be a checkbox that customers can do on their own. So more information to follow on that for sure.
There, as far as IaaS itself goes, there's that can be upgraded, the actual IaaS through the Upgrade Center by the customers themselves. There's quite a bit of not quite a bit, but there's some configuration that you have to do once you do the initial upgrade. I actually have a great link out to the community that we could share. That just takes you through lots of questions, and there's so much documentation out there about it that this community page just has some things that might be a little bit more condensed of just what you need to do. Now, it's not just about learning. So don't expect to go there and think, oh, this is exactly what I need to do for the external learners, but it's for IaaS as a whole. And even those of you who might be thinking, well, I don't have external learners, this still might be something that you'll need to put into place for some of those other tools within the system, like the new reporting, people analytics, which at this point doesn't include learning data. But from what I understand, they're hoping maybe in 2021 that would happen. But at some point, learning data would be available in there too. So you would want that as well.
And also, speaking of the innovation alert blogs out on the customer community, there's a wonderful one that summarizes all these moving pieces for deprecation of user native login. So that is highly recommended reading. There are some prerequisites to kind of get ready for this, all that's going on in 2021, and some things that customers who have native LMS users can start doing, or boxes they can start checking in the meantime. First of all native users will need to have a or distinct email address, right?
Yes. Yes. Actually, that's an IaaS requirement.
Second, you will need to make sure that that integrated external use. What's that? Have I caught up? I think we're having bandwidth issues, unfortunately.
I think you're caught up now. I think I'm seeing your video is kind of moving slowly.
Well, I'm moving slowly, so hopefully it's just
okay,
me.
then that's okay. I think you're back.
All right, good. Yeah, somebody tell my neighbors to get off Netflix, please. It's it's only 5:17. Also, you want to make sure that the integrated external user in platform feature is turned off if you're currently using that. I don't think they're going to take that away if you've already spent time implementing that, but it is kind of mutually exclusive with the IaaS-based native login to LMS. So that's a strong prerequisite.
Okay.
Apparently, if you're using sites, you also want to make sure that they're all set to user recommended login page, so that you don't have a customized login page. And finally, you can't be on validated SaaS. You can't be a life science customer with the FDA validated SaaS requirements. Not yet, at least.
Not yet. So another little bit of a limitation there for that right now.
Well, life science is special, so we love our
they
life
definitely
science
are.
customers.
Yeah.
So moving on, what else is in this release besides some fixes or patches to the new admin UI and a lot of stuff having to do with native users? And we may have lost a lot of people's interest there, but it's important. There are a few reporting guardrails put in place for native LMS reports. And I think this kind of follows a trend that you've seen on the reporting and analytics side with similar guardrails. But they're fixing and setting the maximum report runtime and size at 24 hours and 5 gigabytes respectively. So
that seems to me like a pretty good number there.
It's generous.
Do you think that's really going to be very limiting for many?
I looked at a lot of our customers' config over the past month or so, and I think there was only one or two that exceeded that. So I think that's going to be generous for most customers, and most customers might even see some improvement.
Absolutely.
If they've had reports time out or exceed allotted size in the past. I think there were customers who were cranking up those values to database crushing levels. So they're probably seeing performance issues. One feature that is, I kind of rated as high impact for all our customers, more based on future state perhaps than current state, is sensitive data safeguards. So of course, currently and for a while, there's been the option to flag certain fields in platform as sensitive personal data, right? Somebody's IQ, I don't know. I have trouble coming up with examples for HR data. But,
maybe birthday or something, social security number.
Yeah, social security. I think that one's SPD by default. But SuccessFactors is increasingly taking the stand with LMS that it should not be a system of record for any sensitive personal data. For one thing, you just don't have the granular permission capability that you do in platform or EC to control at a field level what a certain admin should see, right?
Mm-hmm.
If an LMS admin can see a user profile, they can see a user profile.
They can see all of the information.
Yep. So in response to this, if you have, or if customers have any fields flagged as SPD in platform, and if they're currently pushing that data to LMS into a custom field via the user connector, so a few prerequisites there, they're going to stop accepting that data. So the
Okay.
monitoring process will not allow that to occur, and it will even go back and retroactively nullify those custom fields. So it's just not there anymore. So
that's a pretty big deal. It could be for some people if they are flagging any of that. I mean, I know for years, when we do a new implementation, we've always had like the gender field there, and
Yep.
and just recommend don't bring it over. There's not a need for it. It's recommended not to use it, but it's always been there. So it's kind of nice to see some of these same data safety things with that personal data being able to now be recognized on the LMS side, and more of
Definitely.
that integration there.
Well, a lot of what we do as managed service professionals for learning is, we routinely add new fields to the mapping. Customers really only realize after they're live for a while that, hey, I'm missing some ingredients in my pantry, right? I can't bake this cake I want to bake. So I think it's more an awareness for customers moving forward that if you are planning on bringing over additional data elements, make sure it's not sensitive personal data.
Absolutely.
What else have we got? Like I said, a mixed bag. There's a new course home view for blended classified items.
So that's only if they're blended.
And it's permissioned or turned on separately. So it's opt-in, of course, but it's actually a separate configuration, which is interesting.
Outside of the other like item core,
right, outside of the primary course home
Yeah.
activation in the LMS admin file. This one, though, is one to maybe wait on a little bit. It's been delayed until a patch in December, they anticipate. So I think they're just making sure it's perfected right before it's rolled out to everybody. And I found that out the hard way trying to activate it for a customer today. It said nope. So December apparently is when that'll be available. What else? There's
like a Christmas present.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
There's also a new optional reply to email configuration for notifications at the site level. So it's global. And I've had a couple customers who got real excited thinking that maybe could be done at an individual notification level or template level. But it is, just like the global configuration customers would currently have for the from address in email notifications, there will now be the capability for a separate reply to address. I can't say I've ever had a customer ask for that, but a few customers I've spoken with about it were kind of excited. So lack of my imagination for a use case on that one, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder if, when you think about the from email address is usually you want that a little bit more generic. To put something, it's from the learning department or whatever that might be. But with that reply, then you can have more of a not pretty looking name there or something that it really goes to just an email address that is there that the people don't necessarily see on the front end, I suppose.
Or I'll configure them to all go to you. So.
Hey, okay.
All right.
Set up rules in my Outlook.
Recommendations. So there are several, kind of minor enhancements around recommendations, and recommendations are kind of a personal favorite functionality of mine. I mean,
those are great.
Well, it's underutilized. If you have a huge library of vendor content and you really want to market and deliver some ROI on that, what better way to target specific content to specific audiences? And it really adds a personal touch too,
It does. And it just kind of takes away from some of the need to have to do the whole optional training when, that seems to be kind of a favorite of having as an assignment type. Well, it's optional. And I've had customers ask me this even just recently, within the last month, probably. why can't they remove this from their learning plan if it's optional? Well, because you assigned it. But by using recommendations, you can say, hey, here, you can do this if you want.
Totally different paradigm. And to build on that, the enhancement about recommendations I like in this release is the ability to recommend collections. And that's another feature that really flies under the radar, right? I don't think collections get kind of the recognition that they're due. And of course, a collection is just a grouping of items, and optionally, you can put URL links, you know? It could be a collection of Excel fundamental courses with a link out to, you know, a discussion board for help with Excel, for example. So it makes it a little more dimensional. And in the past, those could be put into the catalog, or, you know, they could be user authored content. There's been the capability and permission for users to create their own collections, and almost like quick guides to share them with the same catalog base that they're part of, if that catalog's set to enable user authored content. Wow,
well, and also a great way to be able to use, you know, the external links, and then with collections on things that you want people to be able to link out to if they need to, but it's not really something you have to track. It's not going to give them a completion. I don't need it at that level, but I want to provide it to them. And it just kind of keeps that a little bit cleaner in your learning history to know, oh, they went out and clicked on this link to Google. It doesn't have to be there in that way.
Well, it's, you know, this word is very 2019, I guess, but it really provides a curated experience. And, you know, I'm fine going back to 2019 for a moment there. So, but it truly is. It's kind of a handpicked, you know, it's a collection. And the ability to recommend those, I hope, will kind of synergistically drive more adoption of both recommendations and collections. So.
Absolutely.
What else? Oh, there are printed and proctored exams. You know, the timing of that is a little bit unfortunate, because certainly both of those imply in-person kind of classroom training, right? Where, you know, you may now open your booklet type of deal. But just the ability to have printed exams and, you know, sort of the UI for admins to manually enter those results, which I'm sure every LMS admin on this call would just, you know, be lined up
Wants
to do
that task.
Of course, of course.
Well, I mean, it might not be the best timing for that to come out, but at least, you know, people are working from home. They can really learn that new functionality so that they're ready to use it once they're back in the classroom.
And, you know, I guess proctored exams, which of course is a feature that requires an instructor to enter a proctor code before users can before it opens or unlocks the exam. You know, that could definitely play into a virtual instructor-led scenario. So that one's maybe a little more plausible in today's day and age. But
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so this release was, I have mixed feelings about it, because a lot of the features, again, are so specific to very isolated use cases, I guess. But there's some real gems kind of hidden in there if you look. So
some of those things around the new interface, I think, especially being able to like copy and paste the values into the assignment profiles. That was a big pain point for some of the customers to not be able to do that. And so they would use the old interface. And so at least that kind of stuff will be there now, since we won't have that old one to fall back on.
True.
So definitely, I think I think that I just love the fact that programs will be listed at the item level. Because I've always wondered why it's not there.
Well, and you were just flying blind.
Yeah.
There are a few other bells and whistles with programs too. Ability within a user record in the related program tab to directly assign or remove, you know, assignments that were manually made. much as you could always do with items or curricula within a user record.
Right.
So that's a nice addition. And ability using the learning event editor, the learning history editor tool. There's some of that new terminology. Ability to delete completion records for a program. So.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's definitely a good.
I'm forgetting something. Certificates of completion. So there are a slew of new tokens available if you author your own custom certificates of completion. And tokens, of course, are the dynamic variables that you can put into those to bring information across. That makes it a lot more attractive. It's
definitely, because it was pretty limited. That will be really nice to be able to create some more pretty looking certificates of completion, make them look a little bit better. It's great.
Well, I think that's all I've got. I think we've mined out the H2 2020 LMS release, but some good stuff in there. Some head scratchers for sure, but some good stuff.
Right. Some big things to look out for. I don't think I saw any questions pop up, so.
Our mutual friend, I think, was referring to the word curated as being
yeah,
grievously overused. And Greg, I couldn't agree with you more.
Boo.
I cringe to say it. So kind of like artisanal.
Well, we can expect Greg to be honest with us, so that's good.
We always can. Thank you, Greg. And
Great.
thank you, Carey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you both for sharing your thoughts and your you kind of I love how you approach that, Chris. Like some of it's good, some of it's a head scratcher, but it's going to be a use case for someone, and that's why it's in there. So
you got it.
Yeah. I just apparently I just sounded Canadian. Apparently I've been talking to our Canadian colleagues. Thanks, Val.
Well, shout out to our boss, Carey. Right? He's
That's
a prime
right.
example of a Canadian. So.
But yeah, so thank you both. I'd be remiss if we're talking about learning. I do want to give a shout out to our product team and a cool product that they offer, LMS Planner. It's a place. It's basically a great interface for bringing together all of your training resources, allowing your schedulers and your training planners to optimize their scheduling in a nice little interface. It works with SuccessFactors Learning, so I want to give that a shout out before we were done here. But yeah, thank you again, both of you. Carey doing double duty this week. Chris, taking the bulk of this learning journey with us here. I feel more educated. I feel learned. I feel trained, whatever word. I won't say that you curated that too much. I feel like you just did the whole thing. It wasn't curated.
It was an artisanal experience. So it's all good.
All right. Well, thank you again, Chris and Carey. That's all we'll have for you today, but I do want to remind you that we'll be back early next week. We're going to be digging into those talent modules on Monday at 5 Eastern, which is also 9 a.m. Tuesday, Australian Eastern Time. We'll be talking about performance and goals and succession and development. That'll be followed the next day at the same time with compensation and variable pay. So be sure to follow Rizing HCM LinkedIn. We have the full schedule there for the next coming weeks for all the modules we'll be doing. You can also check out the Rizing blog, and we've linked this in the comments for expanded analysis on the H2 2020 release. If you have any other questions about learning, be sure to go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we'll reach out to you later. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you next time.